I'm bringing you gifts of joy, gifts of joy. Da 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 da. Gifts of joy, da 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 da. Gifts of joy, gifts of joy.
Hello and welcome to Gifts of Joy. I am Joy Douglas here with you today. And I have a very special guest, a wonderful woman. Her name is Desiree Lee. And she is the author of Inmate 1142980, the Desiree Lee story. Thank you so much for joining me, Desiree.
Thank you for having me, Joy.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. Let's just go ahead and dive in. What is the significance of that number?
You know what? It's the word before the number, which is inmate. It is my inmate number of when I was incarcerated a few years ago. I say a few years because it seems like sometimes that is just yesterday. Mm-hmm. However, when I was 17 years old with a 3.8 GPA, 2 basketball scholarships, on my way to college, okay, in pursuit of the American dream, I found myself 2 weeks after graduating from high school on the other side of the law. And I was then incarcerated for 11 counts of armed robbery and 5 counts of aggravated assault. And at 17, I was facing 135 years in prison. And to the parents that may be watching this, you can only imagine how my parents felt of working so hard and tirelessly and sacrificing for me to get those grades, for me to get those scholarships. And then 2 weeks after graduating from high school, I'm on the other side. And so that's where the word inmate and also my number, 1142980, comes into play.
Wow, that is significant within itself. 17 years old.
I know.
Facing 135 years in prison. And you were the epitome, I'm sure, of your parents' eye with having a GPA.
Right. They're like,
education is your
right.
ready for college,
right.
getting ready. Oh my gosh, that's overwhelming within itself. To know. But what did you go to prison for? Well, before we get to that, I want to know, because you did have the GPA and the scholarships waiting for you, and you were on your road to success.
Right.
What happened before you even? What made that change? What transitioned in your life to get you to that direction?
Well, as I briefly mentioned before, that my parents were literally, I wouldn't say strict, but they had a plan to keep me in church. My mother was a choir director, my dad an audio engineer, so you can only imagine how much I was just in church.
Right.
The second thing is because, my parents are baby boomers, and education for someone of color or a female of color, that's how you get up or a leg up or to secure your future, to get a career. Of course, here in America, in our country. And so for my mom, it was more so your education, the opportunities you have, than it was what it is that I wanted to do as a teenager. And every teenager who's probably watching this right now, it's like, my parents don't understand what we're going through. This is a new age, and I'm going to do it this way. However, when I graduated, my mother wanted to instill responsibilities of getting the job. I used to get rewarded financially for the grades. So, of course, I was this big connoisseur of having great grades. Anyhow, she said that I needed a job before I started my fall semester in school. And if I didn't pay XYZ bill or a portion of the rent, then she was going to kick me out, and I was going to have to survive on the fittest. And so I think in my mind, it was either fight or flight. And so I went to my friends that knew nothing. And so what I tell to parents is to, yes, be the parent. I'm not insinuating or encouraging parents to be your kid's best friend. But in that moment, I think as young people, we do look as our parents for that friendship advice. And so, with that being said, she was the parent more so than the friend. And so be the parent first, but be the friend second. And so I went to my ex-boyfriend at the time and told him my woes at 17 years old. And this was a solution to bring funds in before I went into college. And so from that, I ran away basically in the car that my mother bought for my graduation gift for 2 whole weeks. And we were on this robbing spree, and I was just the driver of the car. And I want to express to our young people that no, I didn't go in there with the gun. I was the driver. However, I got charges if I did, and was facing 135 years in prison just for being the driver in the car my mother purchased for my graduation gift. And so the night that I got caught was a real life experience for me, because I didn't think that it would happen to someone like me. And when I say that, someone with a 3.8 GPA, someone with 2 basketball scholarships, someone who's on their way to college, I didn't fathom that this would happen to someone like me until we were pulled over in the middle of Highway 285 here in Georgia, and DeKalb County were, surrounding my car during their home formation. And I still didn't believe they were after me. I thought it was some other car until I saw the white light around my car. And I'm still looking out the window like, who are they after? They couldn't be after us until the car stopped. Of course, the lights went off and they said, get out the car, get out the car. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to put the car in park. Scared to death. Never been in this situation. Never ran away from home. My mom's trying to find out where I'm at. She doesn't know where I'm at. And then I'm in the car and the officer says, do you know what you're getting locked up for? And I tell him, yeah, I do.
Just you sharing this portion of your story, it brings to my mind being a teenager before and having teenagers now, that we think we're invincible.
Yes.
To the point where we can do what other people are doing and not think that we would ever have any type of repercussions.
Right.
Yeah, and a lot of kids, a lot of teenagers probably need to hear that. But let's do this right quick. Let's go ahead and pay some bills, and we'll be right back.
So I saw this book on Amazon.com, The Desiree Lee Story, Inmate 1142980. And I read the reviews, and I had to purchase my own copy. It's just such an inspirational story.
A high school student on her way to college in pursuit of the American dream. 2 weeks after graduation, her dream was no longer an option. Visit www.amazon.com and purchase your copy today.
Welcome back to Gifts of Joy. We have here the wonderful Miss Desiree Lee sharing her story today. Desiree is the author of Inmate 1142980, the Desiree Lee story. And we are having an awesome time. Desiree is sharing her story with us. And so let's just pick back on where your mindset was, of how did you get caught up in the robberies?
Well, it's not necessarily of getting caught up. I think I was influenced by the direction of my friends. But it wasn't as if I didn't go to a youth leader, a teacher, a parent. It was more so, I'm the parent, I'm not your friend. The teacher is, you're supposed to get an education. I'm not here to give you advice on that. The youth leader is, go ask your mom, but the mom or your dad is saying, I'm the parent, not your friend. And so I think as adults, now that I'm an adult, we forget that when our children are young and they had the terrible twos or the questions, when they asked the questions, mommy, what's that? Daddy, what's that? We were patient enough to explain to them what this color was, what are clouds, what are trees, what you're supposed to do, and the curiosity, but we think that our teenagers should already know. And so when they ask us a question, you know better, you should already know, because this is how I raised you.
And forgetting that this
Right. So if we listen from an ear of a friend, we're able to give them the answer as a parent, because my friends probably already dipping and dabbing into that. My friends have probably already experienced that, and I know it's not right, but I kind of want to try it out type of thing. And if I can't go to you for the answer, I'm still going to get that answer to that question. And so what I want to say is, what transpired to go into this is that I felt more security with my friends and my boyfriend at the time than I could lean on my parents, because my mom didn't play that. I was more afraid of my mom than the police. I was more afraid of going home than getting caught by the police. I was so oblivious to that because of what we see on TV, like, oh, I'll just go, I'll come out, my family get me out, I get a bond and all that, and none of that happened to me. It wasn't until the breakthrough moment that when I was in the back of that car, and the officer asked me, do you know what you're getting locked up for? As I share in my book, and I tell him, yeah, because my mom reported the car stolen. I was more mad, thinking that she's messing up our plans, but didn't realize all she was trying to do was to get me to come home. That she didn't look at me as this teenager. I'm still her baby. And what our young people have to understand, when parents have their kids, they don't look at them and say, I want you to be the best ex-felon. Right. They're saying, I want you to have the best life, and I'm going to do my hardest to make sure you have a really great life. And so when he typed in the tag number, he said, the car's not reported stolen. And that's when a flood of tears filled my eyes, because that's when I understood. When I was incarcerated, my mom finally came to visit me. You know what my mother said? The one I was more afraid of than the police. She said, I love you. And she said she's not happy that I was there, but she knew where I was at. That of what thoughts went through her mind for those 2 weeks of her child, her oldest, of what did she do wrong? And she didn't do anything wrong. I think it was just communication, really. And I just was, as for 17, impulsive instead of waiting, instead of being patient. And I think that's what we need to understand, and what I explain inside the book.
And you said a few things that stick out to me, being a mother of teenagers and a 25-year-old. We do want them to succeed and to do what we have in our mind for them to do. Not knowing what their journey is going to be in order for them to get to where they're supposed to be. But when we, as children, we make certain impulsive decisions because we're wanting that sense of security. Absolutely. And we're wanting to be heard. And it sounds like, especially reading in your book, you do mention something about that. It's just like you weren't heard of what was going on with you inside. You were making the grades, you were on the basketball team, you received scholarships, but you were lacking the hearing of your heart.
I mean, because a lot of parents, we don't come, they don't come with books. Right. So we kind of lean on.
I wish you did.
I mean, just a little few points or something. Now that I'm a mom myself,
I want to tell you about a church experience I had. I mean, the spirit was high and the presence of the Lord could be felt throughout the building. Praise. Listen, the people of God were praising the Lord. Let me tell you about it. You see that?
Welcome back, and we're here with Desiree Lee telling her story, the author of Inmate 1142980, the Desiree Lee story. We were touching on just as far as the parents, and as my audience is listening and watching, I want to be able to share this nugget with you. Just reading the story of Desiree, listening to her today, you have to be in tune and listen to her children. Focus on what's going on with them, because they transition and they change just like we do. And we take them from infants to toddlers to adolescents, and when they get to the adolescent stage, they're trying to make decisions on their own, and a lot of times we do just kind of throw them to the wolves without realizing that we're wolves. So so they're left to pamper themselves and to try to figure things out. But if we just take the time to actually listen and hear what it is that's going on with them, as Desiree has said, her parents did an awesome job. She had the GPA, 3.8 GPA, basketball scholarships, and was headed for success, but somehow that lack of listening and hearing her heart and what was going on with her, it did take her on a detour. So let's just pick up where we left off as far as you being in the back of that car and you realizing that it wasn't because you had stolen the car, it was because of the robberies and the
Absolutely. And it wasn't like that I didn't want to go home. I just didn't know how. I didn't know how, at the time where I got in trouble, and that's what I explained in the book, of how to communicate, Mommy, I need help, Daddy, I need help. And so I want to encourage the viewers as you're watching this, that your young person may not be watching this, maybe it's you, right? That to establish a safe word. When you have a safe word, the rules are that you're supposed to listen first and then give your critique, because as parents, it's just an automatic reaction of what are you doing? Or they talk about they like boys, or they talk about they want to go hang out, and you're like, you're not supposed to be doing that. Stay on the straight and narrow, and this and the other. But when your child says the safe word, for instance, pink roses is the one with me, my daughter. She's been using it since she was in 2nd grade. And she'll say, Mommy, pink roses. And that right there will kind of disarm me to listen to her first and then respond. So she says, Mommy, pink roses, I have a crush on this boy. And then I'm able to say, you know what? It's normal for you to like boys and have a crush right now. Did you tell him that you like him? To open up that dialogue to see how far did she go already? Where do I direct her, instead of assuming what she's already done or penalizing her or punishing her, and say, hey, look, if you tell him, just know to how to deal with rejection. If he doesn't like you back, this is how you're supposed to respond. You're going to always be friends. A second thing is saying, hey, look, focus on being friends, build that friendship up first, right? Do your schoolwork, because, hey, look, Mommy knows you can get distracted because he's cute, huh? Yeah, Mommy, what you talking about? So it kind of like disarms it a little bit to where now as a parent, I know what my child is thinking. I know how to govern her, and I know how to maneuver between that. And then she feels safe to say this. And so when I did get caught up, in those 2 weeks, I wanted to go home. But how do I call my mom? It would have been awesome if I could have said, Mommy, pink roses. I don't know how much trouble I'm in, or maybe your child is, at Chick-fil-A or at movies, and this boy's peer pressured her to lose her virginity, or, she feels obligated to do something, or he feels obligated to do something, or smoke weed or something like that. He doesn't want to. You say, Mommy, pink roses, and in that way she can text him and still make him feel like he's cool. And then on how do I retreat? How do I get out of this? My back is against the wall, Mom, Dad. What do I do when I'm in it? What do I do when I find myself here? What do I do when I make a mistake? What do I do when the officer, I'm complying with them and they still lock me up? Who do I call first? And we need to really equip our kids on, it's like, look, we can't protect it from everything.
Right.
But if we can create a safe word, I think things would have probably went a little bit more differently.
I like that.
I don't think I would have been out there for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how to come home. And so for that was meaningful for me. And, and I elaborate on that inside of the book too as well. And so I'm excited. My story is for 3 types of people. It's to prevent someone from going in the situation. Like we were sharing before, it may not apply to you right now. You may be a parent or an adult saying, my kids are great, and I'm sure my mom said that at one point in time too, but it may be to prevent you from going in it. Maybe you're watching this is to encourage you while you're in it. Maybe you feel like you're by yourself, like you're the only one going through something so tough like this, and to show people that nothing is impossible in spite of that it's never too late to become what you could have been. Sometimes we feel that we messed up, we waited too long, we missed out on opportunities, we made too many mistakes. And so it's never too late to become what you could have been. Wow. These are my gifts of joy I'm sharing with everybody. You know?
Wonderful, wonderful. We're definitely here speaking with Desiree Lee, and she's telling her story. Let me take a quick commercial, and I'll be right back with you.
You know what, Joy? So what I really love about this conversation is that the parents are able to see it from a parent's perspective of my experience. Also, a young person is able to see it from, or how parents view it, or see it from my experience as a teenager. And so I think what a lot of young people think when it comes to prison is that it's what they see or the perception that they see on TV, such as Scared Straight and different shows like that. And the difference between those shows and my experience is that on Scared Straight, they can't touch you. But when you're in prison, they can touch you, right? And that everyone who goes in, not everyone makes it out. Not everyone gets a second chance. Not everyone gets a redemption story. Not everyone gets to come out on the other side of different things like that. And so the turning point where the light bulb is like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the end of my life. Like, because I didn't want to go home, because I didn't want to make up my bed, because I didn't like my mom's rules. I'm standing in front of the judge, and she's about to tell me how much time I'm going to spend in this place, where I'm listening to the district attorney saying that the minimum is 135 years for 11 counts of armed robbery, 5 counts of aggravated assault, and all I had to do was go home. All I had to do was mind my curfew. All I had to do was follow the rules. All I had to do was ask for help. And because of all that, now I'm feeling in this moment that that's the end of my life. And I'm grateful that my parents put me in church because I prayed. And when I stood in front of the judge, this Caucasian lady in the stories, you can hear the stories inside of the jail of how she's going to throw the book at me, you know. And I'm standing in front of her and, you know, I'm about to take a plea deal because it didn't make sense to go to trial, because trial is like if you're guilty or not guilty. And I knew I was guilty. So what is my punishment going to be? And she says, you know, I don't know what it is about you. And she starts writing. And even though the DA wants to get me this 135 years, she says, I can't give you probation because you knew what you were doing the first time, the second time, the 11th time. So I can't give you probation. I can't give you the First Offenders Act because you knew what you were doing. You didn't go home after the first time. You didn't go second time or the third time. And so I want to tell kids, yeah, you may not get caught the first time. You may not get caught shoplifting the second time, the third time, but you will get caught. And so, but she said the least that she can do for me is to give me 10 years to serve 4 years in prison. And she said, if I ever get sad, to write her. If I ever need something, to write her. And she can't wait to see what I do with my second chance. And so I'm happy to say that even though this lady, she doesn't look like me, the stigmas are around it, she sent me paper, crowns, different things that I could have when I was in prison. Of course, she couldn't go be online because she was a judge. But at the same time, just to know that she believed in me still, but she still had to give me that punishment. It meant the world to me. And for her to see now what I'm doing with my second chance, it's meaningful. So somebody may have done something to you, your kid's done something, you may have done something to yourself. Sometimes we are self-inflicted pain, but give yourself a second chance. Give yourself a second chance.
This is truly a story of redemption. where you didn't deserve the 4 years.
Yeah, that much time.
You didn't deserve just that because of the offenses.
Absolutely.
But I have to put in here how God spared your life.
Yes.
And how he redeemed you.
Absolutely.
It's truly a blessing.
It really is
a blessing. We have heard where you started, where you ended up because of the offenses. Now, let's take us, because evidently you didn't have to serve the 135. So you're here now. But what happened after, because I'm sure there's some type of transition that you have to go through after being a convicted felon, coming out of prison, even though you didn't have all those years to serve, was it still like prison coming out? Were you still in some type of bondage, just to get on your way, just to have some type of life, some type of normalcy?
You know, when I was first released from prison, I didn't think so. It's like graduating from college when you get your degree and you feel like, you know, you have your whole life, you're going to get this big job that you've been dreaming of, and then you find out, like, there's no jobs in this field. What do you do now? Or people are shutting the door in your face. What do you do now? And so when I was released from prison, I felt like that. I'm like, let me get my life back together. Oh, you won't have to tell me twice. You know, it just took me one time to learn my lesson. And, you know, I'm going to get an education. I'm going to get a job and so forth. And I went out full throttle, excited, just going, zooming right through. Hey, Mom, look at me. Go to apply for jobs. And they told me no, not because of my education, but because of the criminal background part. I went to go try to find a place to stay, and it wasn't credit. It was a background check. They do background checks for apartments. But in order to stay on probation, you need a place to stay. So what was I going to do in that transition? I tried to go back to school, but with financial aid, they do background checks. Now, I can go to school. I would have to pay out of pocket, but in order to pay out of pocket, I need a job, and the job does a background check. I went from being trying to be a stock person in Walmart, trying to be a cook in the back at McDonald's. I went from even trying to do cosmetology. Now, you can go to school for cosmetology, but when you go get your state board license, they do a background check. And so I tried to be a barber, couldn't do that. There's 138 jobs where you need a state license to where they do background checks when you go for these licenses. And so for a long time, I kept hitting the wall and rejection. I even tried to get a job at Red Lobster as a waitress. And in order to do that, you need an alcohol license. In order to take a glass of wine, not to pour the drink, but a glass of wine from the bar to your table, you need a license to do that. So I go to appeal, try to do that, and they said, no, we don't know if you're going to get people drunk, like they're going to commit a crime after they have dinner at Red Lobster. And that was a background check. So when you talk about rejection, that's one thing. But to be rejected for 6 long years, it wasn't as if I wasn't trying. It wasn't as if I was sitting on the couch, eating chips, waiting for someone to give me this opportunity. I tried over and over and over and over again. And I don't know, you know, somebody might be watching right now and they just are like, I tried all these times and I'm just tired. For 6 years, Joy, to where from trying to get a job at Waffle House, get a job, anything, to go back to school, to do this, to do that. And excuse me, because it's not easy. And I know it's the people who are watching right now, it's not like they're not trying. Maybe it's entrepreneurship. Maybe it's ministry. And I want to encourage them that they're not going through this for themselves. They're going through it to prevent someone from going through that it hurts so bad that you wouldn't want nobody to experience that. That if I had to lay on that mat in prison just so no other teen has to experience that, then it was worth it. If I had to go through years of rejection and getting the door slapped in my face and no, and go through that for somebody else so they can skip the hurdles, then it was worth it. If I have to sit here today to show people that, look, this is not the end. This is not the end. And when you take yourself, when you go through something for someone else, it makes going through a little bit more easier because I'm going to bear it so you don't have to go through it. It makes it a little bit more easier to continue to go through and come out on the other side. And I didn't realize that until the moment of where I just hit the end of the road to where I was so depressed, so beaten down. I'm talking about beaten down all the way down to where I wanted to commit suicide. You know how some people will get on here and say, don't give up? I'm sorry, Joy, but I gave up that day.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't hear another motivational speech or anything. Like, you know what? Look, y'all don't know what I'm experiencing. I'm done. And my mom, I was at my mom's house, and she says to me, do you want to go get a pedicure with me? And I said to myself, well, this is the last time that I'm going to spend with my mom. Nobody knew that this is the feeling that I had. At that time, I still didn't know how to communicate of what I was going through because to them, it's like the bills are coming up. How are you going to contribute to the home? And maybe somebody has been affected with those who have been incarcerated. Maybe you are the person that has been incarcerated and you feel this way too. And when I was in the nail salon, I'm sitting waiting to, go get my feet done. And it's a stranger sitting next to me, this black lady. And she looks at me and is like, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful. And I'm looking at her like, look, lady, today is not the day. And you know how sometimes as women, I don't even want to say people of color, but just women in general, of how we unconsciously compete. I think we or unconsciously look at each other, not as validation or lifting each other up or affirm affirmation or affirm that person to say, I love your top. I love your makeup. And for somebody to do that for me in that moment, it was, wait a minute, who are you? I don't know you. And we start talking, and so she invited me. She said she's into holistic teas. I'm like, oh my gosh, this lady wants to sell me some tea. I'm not buying no tea. She's like, just have coffee with me the next day. And so I said, okay, why not? She doesn't know me. Maybe this works. I don't know. And I sit down at the coffee shop with her, and that's when I had my pity party.
You had every right to have a pity party. Look at what you have gone through, what you were dealing with. But there's always a but.
Yeah, I think I had the pity party because I didn't know how to talk to a psychiatrist without feeling like they're going to put me back in jail or something like that. I think I had this pity party or felt comfortable to talk to a stranger, somebody who doesn't know me, somebody I probably, in my mind, I was thinking like, oh, I'm not going to see this person ever again, or whatever the case may be. I'm just going to pour my heart out to this girl because whatever, I need to get it out. I need a solution. And
you were desperate at this point because you were already thinking about committing suicide. So you're going to end it anyway. So why not just go ahead and talk to whoever I can talk to?
Right.
Yeah.
I was really asking for help without telling her I wanted. I mean, it's like you can't walk up to somebody and say, hi, Joy, I'm Desiree Lee, and I'm a convicted felon. It's a shameful thing. To say, I want to commit suicide, we tend to go to mental health really fast, or we tend to go to like, oh, you don't know how to deal with stress type of thing. So it's more of a an embarrassing, shameful thing to be able to open up to tell somebody that. So in so many words, when I was having this pity party, the government this, the system this, my mom this, my dad this, my education this, the white man this, America this, the president this, everything this. It's just too much. And she smiled at me. She looked at me just like you're looking at me now, Joy. Oh my gosh, this is bringing me back to the coffee shop. I promise you. She was looking at me the same way you're looking at me. And I'm like, what is wrong with this lady? I'm telling her what I went through, and you're like, no, that's a good thing. That's what she. And I'm like, what in the world? So she goes in her purse. I'm crying. It's not running down my nose. And so she goes in her purse and she pulls out this little jar. And it was of mustard seeds. I didn't know at the time. And so she says, give me your hand. And so she pours the seeds in my hand and I look at them. She says, do you know what these are? And I'm like, I've been to church all my life. Yeah, I know what these are. What do you mean? These mustard seeds. I didn't come to you for you to pray to me. I tried that for 6 years. It didn't work. I didn't come for you to minister to me. I've been in church. I know this already. I need a job. But she gave me mustard seeds. I need money. She gave me mustard seeds. I need an education. She gave me mustard seeds. I need help. And she gave me mustard seeds. And I picked that thing up, Joy. And then I'm so furious with her. Because it wasn't what I was expecting.
Right.
And I picked that thing up and I said, this is all the faith I have left.
That's all it takes.
And she said, that's all the faith you need. And I'm like, no, listen. Without telling her I want to commit suicide, I'm like, listen, lady, me coming here, this is all I came here with. And she said, that's all the faith you need. And she said, you have to open up your mouth and speak to the mountain and it will move. Because I was focusing on the pity, I'm speaking to this mountain. Sometimes our problems stack up so high, they become our mountains. And we don't speak to it and tell it to move. And so she gave me affirmations to say. And in that moment, faith became tangible for me. Believing one more time became tangible. I was able to touch it than just some fairy tale or some thought or some belief system I had in my head this whole time. And so some of those affirmations were, I forgive myself for everything that I've endured. I didn't realize my family, everybody already forgiven me, but I didn't forgive myself. Right. That I have the power to create my own wealth. I can, I will, I am. Whatever you put after I am, that's what you become. If I say, who are you, Joy? You say, I am a talk show host. You know, if I went to school to be a doctor and someone asked me, I am a doctor, I'm in med school, this is who I am. That's what you become. And so I started speaking these things. And 30 days later, the doors opened up for me, Joy. Like, I went through all of this for 6 years. 30 days later, the doors opened up for me. I was at Taco Bell. Pastor called and asked me to share my story. Now, be mindful. It wasn't like I wanted to be a speaker. It wasn't like I wanted to be an author. I just wanted an opportunity. What am I supposed to do with my purpose? What do I do? And so I went back to Stacy and I said, Stacy, you didn't have to say hi to me that day. You didn't have to speak to me that day. You didn't have to give me mustard seeds that day, but you did. And I want to say thank you so much. And you know what she said to me? She said, you want to know why I spoke to you that day? She said, because you look like what I just came out of. Wow. And she said that she was going through a divorce and she was going to commit suicide because it was just the most horrible thing that she was going through in her life at that moment. And a lady by the name of Dama talked to her in a smoothie shop the same way she spoke to me and gave her mustard seeds. So my second book is called Pass the Mustard Seed, because Dama gave her the mustard seed and spoke life into her, and she did the same thing for me. And so I say to the stranger, thank you for not giving up while you were going through. Because I'm a stranger that was depending on her. My life was literally depending on her to keep going. My life was literally depending on her to not give up. My life was literally depending on her to believe just one more time. Because if she would have been successful in suicide, I would have never got my mustard seed. And so that encourages me. And then I say, dang, I went through all that for 6 years and I couldn't give God 30 more days. I couldn't wait just 30 more days. You see, God doesn't want us to be God. He's God all by himself. Just do what he asks you to do and to move forward. And so from that, you know, it's just aha, just in that moment, that transitional moment, and that happened in August of 2012. We're in 2020. And so every time, there's moments that I still want to give up sometimes. not to the length of suicide, but sometimes where it is tough to bear it. But when I think about individuals of you or those who are watching, that I don't know what stranger is depending on me to just take another step forward. I don't know who is at the brink of saying, I can't take it no more. That I know what it feels like. And so I think in order to be able to share that moment, to encourage that person to take another step, that this is not the end all. This is your purpose. This is your assignment. And you don't know what strangers are depending on that for you to continue to move forward. And shame on you if you give up too soon. Shame on you if you say it's just too tough and you have all these lives. I cannot think of a teenager killing their life because I was too tired. Or my daughter saying that she can't do it no more because mommy was too tired. Or this person, they're too tired and so forth. Shame on you for not persevering. And that's what my story is for. So I want to encourage those that your story is not for you. What you experience is not for you, and it's for someone else. Meet more strangers, and I say this not from a place of pain, but from a place of power, because it's never too late for you to become what you could have been.
Desiree's story is so encouraging and so empowering. I feel the need to be able to share this with whoever's watching, listening to her story and see how God has redeemed her and brought her from a place of excellence and success to a place of wanting to give up and being in places at the wrong time, dealing with the wrong people, to how he chose to redeem her once again. And now her purpose is connected to so many other people. This is the reason that I do this show, to be able to share, for people to share their stories with where they were and where they are and how they want to be able to empower and inspire and encourage others. This book, when I was reading this book, I read it in a barbershop, and I'm not even a reader, but I took the time, less than 24 hours, to read this book. And the place that I was at in my life at the time was trying to deal with a teenager that was rebellious, and it encouraged me to continue to keep going and to listen to her and to see what else was going on in her life so that I would be empowered to be the mother that I needed to be with her, for her. And I believe that because I read this book, it changed my whole outlook and my whole perspective on how to deal with my 18-year-old at the time. And so I encourage you, get this book, whatever you're going through, whatever you're experiencing. And it's not only just Desiree's story of where she's come from, but it's where she's going. And I am so thankful that we've had the opportunity to hear your story and for you to share your heart with us.
I'm bringing you gifts of joy, gifts of joy. Da 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 da. Gifts of joy, da 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 da. Gifts of joy, gifts of joy.